Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to the Wayne Bennett podcast. This is our 36th episode, and my name is Wayne Bennett. And today's guest is Chris Grose, former Woodrow Wilson High School football star and Marshall University football star. And glad to have you, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Let's start back. You came from a relatively athletic family. Your dad, I know, played some football at Woodrow, and he boxed a little bit. And you had an uncle, George Boyd, that was a quarterback at Mount Hope High School, and then played at WVU. What about your mom? Was she athletic?
Mom was pretty good. She was in the band. She played a saxophone, so she had a good, what would you call that, a music instrument gift. So yes, she was in the band as my uncle played football, so that was always good.
Well, they didn't have a lot of sports for girls back then, and it was kind of, they didn't have a lot to choose from. I know when you were younger, I mean, you played a little bit of everything: baseball, football, track, basketball, wrestling. Did a little bit of everything there. When you got to who was some of your coaches in the youth sports? You remember?
Well, I remember you being one of my coaches in wrestling, and then there was another. Jim Bowman was our football coach. Our baseball coach, I had several different ones up through the years. But they were all inspirational in everything that I had done. I was really appreciative of all the things they helped me with as I was in youth football, baseball, basketball, all those things coming up. There was a lot of things that I learned from them that really helped me later on in life. It always kind of stuck with me, so I was always thankful for that.
When you got to Park Junior High, you gave up the sport of wrestling and played basketball. Of course, you played under Bobby Boland. That was his first coaching assignment, and he went on to become a legend and coach of the year in NAIA basketball. And I always said, though, if you would have stuck with the wrestling, you'd have probably been a 2 or 3 time state champion in high school. but it didn't hurt you none to have Bobby as a coach, I'm sure. And you guys were good friends, too.
Right. I always look back and, there's things that you do when you do them. And, for wrestling, as we all know, a lot of times wrestling's pretty intense. So one of the things that we always try to think about is that it's not like football. You don't have 11 other players, to kind of hide in behind if anything comes up. Wrestling, you're out there on your own. So sometimes it's a little bit of pressure that, sometimes after you get to a certain point, you're thinking, okay, I don't really want to take on this much pressure anymore. But now looking back, I always wish that I kind of maybe had stayed with it. Now that I get into jiu-jitsu and I've done things with like UFC fighting and those kind of things, I always kind of wish maybe that I had stuck with it and maybe done some more things that would lead me down the other path. But I don't ever go back and regret it because I knew that at some point, as we talked about, I wanted to play football, especially in college. Yeah. So there was nothing else that I, had my mind set on all the way from as a kid. I always thought this is the thing that I want to do, and it never left. So I played the other sports because I really enjoyed playing, athletic sports, and it was a good thing to, to stay active with, and especially in those days when there wasn't much we do. We didn't have computers and all the other stuff that we have now.
So you wouldn't recommend for a kid just to focus on one sport going through high school or junior high and high school?
Oh no, and I talk to my nephews and some of the other kids that come into my office, and I want to explain to them that that's what most of the colleges look at. When you look at some of the people from our state, that have went on to play at the collegiate level and even into the pros, one of the ways that they were recognized was from a sport that they didn't even get signed for. Coach Paterno come and sell Kurt Warner down in Pineville at a basketball game.
Yeah.
Watched him playing basketball and said that's going to be someone that we want to play on our football team. So I say it keeps you active. It keeps things doing. And it's part of a team. So it'll help you in life as you grow. You'll be a part of those things, and it helps you with a lot of the things that you do.
Well, I know when you were in junior high and had the opportunity. I was assistant coach in football, and I think we only lost one game in 3 years, didn't we? Who did we lose to?
We lost to Bluefield. Yeah.
Yeah, they were a nemesis. So, of course, we were a nemesis for them too. But
Right.
and it usually was pretty spirited contest when the whole time we played them guys. But then the group, they kind of split up. Some of the guys went to Independence High School, some went to Woodrow, but you had pretty good years. I mean, you played a lot in the 10th grade at Woodrow, and all the way up to your senior year. One of the things in junior high, when you were a 9th grader, we were pretty dominant team, and Coach Lambert, the head coach, he had you back at safety and on defense, and man, some of the licks that these guys would get you kind of could smell the ball, where the ball was going, and there's players that can read keys and stuff like that, but you can't teach recognition and smelling the ball. We've had a few guys that I've been fortunate enough to coach, and only a handful that could do that. It's just almost a natural instinct. You kind of knew where the ball was going, and laying some licks on guys from 15 yards out I'm sure was a lot of fun for you. It was enjoyable. And then when you got to Marshall, the first year you graduated from Woodrow in 91?
Yes, sir.
And when you got to Marshall, was it the first year you were there that they won a national championship?
No, sir. We played in the national championship down in Georgia, and we lost.
Okay.
My freshman year.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And now, did you get recruited by Jim Donnan?
I did. They came and got me out of school. Originally, I had verbally committed with WVU. I really wanted to go to Virginia Tech. I know a lot of people are not happy about that, but when I had spoke with my mom, she said that, your uncle played at West Virginia, you're from West Virginia, that's where you should go. But when West Virginia decided that they weren't going to take 3 fullbacks, they were only going to take 1. They took the Woodward from North Carolina, so that I had to get back on the phone. And when that happened, I was planning on possibly having to go to Fork Union or one of the other places. Well, then Coach Donnan came and got me out of school around March, April. And they had some opportunities that, where they could bring me to Marshall. And, when we think about that, Marshall at that point wasn't as dominant as it was now. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of thinking, well, this could be a good opportunity to stay in state. I liked Coach Donnan. I knew about him from Oklahoma, so I knew he was going to do good things with the program. So all the recruiting that I had was from defense, but I really wanted to play offense. And he said that could be an opportunity, but they had like a 1 wing back, and he said that may be a good opportunity for us to add you as a fullback. So at that point, I decided that I was going to forego going. I was going to go to Hargrave. They were going to give me a half scholarship, and which is a military school that you don't lose any eligibility. So I decided that, well, this is my opportunity. I think I'm going to go with it, and never regretted it. Had a great time.
Now, in high school, you played football and baseball, right?
I played football, baseball. I did wrestle 1 year, and I ran track.
Okay. And so when you got to Marshall, what did you study?
I started out in psychology, and then I thought I kind of wanted to be a college professor. And then I determined that maybe I wanted to do something with sports, kind of like some type of sports medicine. So then I became a pre-med major my second year. Uh-huh. And then I've went through 4 years. I got a biology degree, which is like a pre-med degree. And then when I was applying I took the MCAT, and I was applying to Lewisburg, which is the osteopathic school, West Virginia Osteopathic School. They put me on a waiting list, and then I had a conversation when I was at Marshall. One of my roommates' dad was a chiropractor. Well, there was another chiropractor named Mark Davis who used to come up he had about 4 or 5 offices all throughout Charleston and Winfield and Barbersville. And he said, you going to med school? And he said, well, let me talk to you about chiropractic. How about we have lunch someday? And I'd been to a chiropractor, Dr. Evans, when I was at Woodrow. I'd hurt my neck and had went over, and it made such a big difference, especially in my track field, with getting adjusted. And I thought this may be something that I really want to do. So I had lunch with him, and in my past, my mom was the director of nursing at Beckley Hospital, and then she was the nursing supervisor at Raleigh General. Well, a lot of times that's when antibiotics were starting to come in, but I just didn't buy into it. It wasn't my mom would always say, here, take some antibiotics, and I really didn't want to. I didn't like the way that it made me feel. So as I was going through school, that just made sense to me when I had the conversation with Mark on how chiropractic is kind of the way that we try to help the body sustain what it is that God made it to do. So if we can help our bodies repair itself, heal itself, that's the best way to go about it. Now, not to say that there's not need for medicine. That's in an emergency situation. And I understood that. And I kind of wanted to be an ER doctor. So when he gave that, 2 weeks later, I moved to Marietta, Georgia, started chiropractic school.
Now, when you were at Marshall, you roomed with Don and Son?
I did. Me and Todd Donnan were roommates. Let me think about that. My first 2 years, and then when we were juniors, we moved out together into an apartment complex.
Now, he was a quarterback, right?
He was our quarterback. Yes.
So when they won the national championship, that was '92, I guess, and Chris Parker he was a tailback then, and they had Pedro.
Glenn Pedro.
He was the fullback, first team.
Yes. Chris, and there was another one. There was a hatchback. Actually, his name was Orlando Hatchett. He was the running back. Chris hadn't came into he was there a little bit the '92 season. He came more so in the '93 season.
I see.
In the '94.
Now, I remember reading an article somewhere along the line. You were a little frustrated because you wasn't getting to play the first couple years, and of course, back then freshmen hardly ever. Well, even before they had freshman teams, they couldn't even be on the team. And did you ever seriously think about leaving Marshall?
When I got there, I didn't get redshirted, so I played in sports. I played on the special teams in the beginning. And then I started to see them starting to move me in a little bit, but then I was more concerned about if that was going to be the only role that I had on the team. So there was some consideration that I thought, is there another place that I need to go that really uses a fullback? But then I remember my junior year, they were at the sports the quarterback club, and Coach Donnan yelled out into the stand, out into all the people, and he said, "You guys wanted me to get a fullback? Well, I got one, and his name is Chris Grose." And so I always thought that was pretty funny. I was like, well, that's a good sign that, now maybe I'm going to start implementing some of the things that I could help out with the team on the offense.
Then, before, in 93, 94, didn't y'all go back to the national championship?
We went back to the national championship in 93, but in 94, which was my senior year, we lost to Boise at Boise.
I see. How would you rate your experience at Marshall? I mean, you graduated, you played last couple of years extensively, part of playing for a national championship. I mean, not many people get that kind of opportunity ever. What about do you still have any contact with some of the players that you played with?
We do. It was a great experience for me. And my family. It was close to home. We had the new stadium. It wasn't as big as some of the ones that I had thought that where I was going to be, but it was a great crowd. Then a lot of the players that I played with, as you know, went on to play in the NFL, so that was a great experience. We do keep in a lot of contact. We do a thing on Facebook where a lot of the players from those type of national championship teams get on a Zoom call, and we all kind of touch base with everyone. And that's the good thing about Facebook now, is that you can catch each other on Facebook, so you can keep in touch with what are they doing, are they going to the game, where are they meeting, and we all get back together. They're actually having the 96 championship team come back for the reunion. When they come back, they're coming back for the reunion this year. And so they were named one of the best teams to ever play at Marshall. That was with Randy and Chad Pennington.
Yeah.
And they ended up being number 9 in the country.
Let's go back just a second. We mentioned athletic family. Your brother Matt, younger brother Matt, he's in the Woodrow Wilson Football Hall of Fame, and Melissa, your sister, is in the Woodrow Wilson Basketball Hall of Fame, Girls Basketball Hall of Fame. You're in the Woodrow Wilson Hall of Fame football?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's pretty remarkable, three from one family. I know when, of course, Matt went to that other school. He didn't go to Park, but Melissa, when she went to Park Junior High, the girls couldn't play football, and she had played baseball and football with boys even at the youth level. And when she was in the ninth grade, she could have started for our football team as a halfback. And I think it was the year after she left and went to Woodrow that they started letting girls play. And I mean, I said, man, if I had her that. Of course, we ended up, I think, 7-1 that year anyway. But she would have probably started on both sides. But very athletic. And then she has two sons right now that are Independence High School, Atticus and Cyrus Goodson. And I watched their dad play football and wrestle. I think I refereed some of his wrestling matches. And those guys are having quite a career right now. And Independence is really reaping the benefits, aren't they? But that's a pretty athletic fit. You all get together. And what about you have a son?
I do.
You have one son?
I do.
And he's 8th grader?
He's an 8th grader, just turned 14 in September.
And he plays football and runs cross country?
Right.
Is that right?
He does. Plays basketball and baseball. He likes it all.
That's hard football and cross country is hard to do, man. But and he's pretty good size.
He is. He's right at 6 foot right now at 14. His mom's dad was about 6'4", so he may get those genes. We've predicted him, from birth, to be around 6'2", 6'4".
You guys, do all of you ever get together and talk sports, or what do you talk about?
We do, and that's a funny thing. Matt, my brother, was a really, really good linebacker at Woodrow. He just decided to do other things that, he didn't want to go play football at college. And as we've all said, and we all joke about it, my sister is the best athlete in the family. So when we get together, she always lets us know that's where it still stands. But we are very thankful for my mom, and all the things that she did for us as we were growing up to help us when all of those things were coming about, because she was a single mom raising 3 kids.
Oh, man.
And then there's 3 different kids at 3 different, fields in 3 different locations. But we all get together now and we watch the West Virginia games. We watch the Marshall games together. We like to, have parties, get the food, have everybody over, and we always kind of reminisce about things that we did when we were in high school, junior high.
Your mom was probably tickled when one of you got a driver's license, so she wouldn't have to take you to all the practices and all that kind of stuff. And now, after you graduated from Marshall and you got your degree in chiropractic, you went to California and.
I did. I started at Marietta College, Life Chiropractic College in Marietta, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to do a specific type of chiropractic, which is called chiropractic biophysics, which really is the most scientifically proven of anything. They're in the orthopedic spine journals and everything on correcting posture. And they had that at Life Chiropractic College West, which was in the East Bay of San Francisco in Hayward. The girl that I was dating at the time had some friends that had moved out there and said that they had really liked it. And she said that she possibly wanted to transfer out there as well. And when I found out that they had the CBP protocol over there, chiropractic biophysics, I said, well, that'd be a great opportunity for me. I'm just a kid from West Virginia now, I'll be living in California, been able to get the education that I wanted to get through the CBP. And then they needed a president out there for the club. And I thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity for me to move out there. So when I did my I went to chiropractic college there in Hayward, which is on the East Bay of San Francisco. And then after that, I had some opportunities where I was with another gentleman that was in my graduating class, and we worked on some of the dancers that was from the San Francisco Ballet. So we did a technique called active release technique that they really, really enjoyed because it helped with a lot of the muscle, soft tissue stuff. And it's an athletic thing. Dr. Michael Leahy takes care of a lot of the sports runners for the Olympic teams based on that soft tissue work that he does. And so after doing that, we had some opportunities to go work with the River Dance Club, some other types of dance opportunities. I didn't choose to do that. I was going to go down into Hollywood, down into Los Angeles, and see if I could do it there. The guy that I graduated with, he went with the River Dance Club. Well, his opportunity became a lot better because then he started taking care of like Andre Agassi's, manager. Some other opportunities that kept coming up, and then he got into the times where he would take care of the bands, the music bands. And he and I would keep in touch, and then he landed in Las Vegas with
Really?
With
well, when did you come back to West Virginia?
Well, I was in California I was in Los Angeles there practicing for about 4 years. I came back to West Virginia around 2005.
And when you came back, did you open offices immediately, or?
I did. I had to take the state board test, which was in August, so I came back in around February. And then I just did some odd jobs around the area, and then until I could get my license. And when August came in, as soon as I took the test, I drove home and we had the doors open.
Now you have offices in where? You have two different offices?
I have 3 different offices. I have one in Beckley, I have one in Whipple out in Fayette County, and then I have one in Sophia.
And how many people do you employ at those offices?
There's quite a few. We got about 10. Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's great. Now, you here recently, you've gotten into Spartan races, or I call them mud races or whatever, but they're pretty demanding. How did you get involved in that?
Well, one of my childhood friends, Timmy Justice, who was a really, really good athlete at Independence, he actually was with us at Park as well. Ran one of the Spartan races, and he said, "Hey man, there's this Spartan race, let's go run it." And I said, "Well, what's it entail?" And he described all the obstacles that you had to go over, and then it's a run. And he made the statement that just set with me that I really, really like, and I still use it to this day. He said, "At some point, we won't be able to run these races, so we might as well do them while we can."
That's good.
And I said, "Sign me up." And as I got into it, I thought, well, I can pretty much compete at this. At my age group, I'm a bigger guy, 6 foot, 235, 240. So a lot of the running, the little runners catch me, but some of the strength that I use to use the obstacles is a lot better. So I've, in my age group, I qualified. I dropped into the top 20 one time in Virginia. So I was pretty happy about that.
That's, had you been training before, working out regularly, or?
I did. We started doing CrossFit, and that's another avenue that I liked, as long as you can do it. Do it while you're doing it. So a lot of the CrossFit training will help prepare you for a Spartan race.
I had, it's been a few years now, about almost 10 years ago. I was 61, and my son John wanted me to come up to Culpeper and it was a sprint mud race. It was supposed to have been a 5K, but it ended up being about a little over 4 miles. And it was pretty. Of course, I was still running, and it was pretty demanding. But I was 61 years old. There was 1,400 runners, and of course they had us going like 50 at a time or whatever, and you had to climb a rope thing over. And I didn't realize that I was the oldest guy in the thing until our group took off, and once I got over the rope ladder, everybody started cheering for me, and then it was, it was in the first week of November, which was cold, and we had to go through a lake and run up a creek and a lot of water. The very end of it, had to go across through mud underneath barbed wire, and I didn't even hang around for the awards ceremony. And the next day, which was a Sunday, we were coming back, and John called me on my cell phone. He said, "Dad, you won your age group." And I said, couldn't have been anybody else in there, man. But they did the same thing again, in the same course again in the spring. But I didn't go back. But then I had some physical problems, couldn't. But I enjoyed it. It was different. It was, and everybody was kind of cheering. We had the elite guys, I mean, they took off in one group together. But the rest of everybody, it was kind of a team thing. People kind of help you over an obstacle if you need a little bit of help, and then I saw recently where you did a half marathon.
I did that's the second half marathon that I've ever done.
And I mean, you're a big guy. How much you weigh? I mean,
I'm 238.
238. I mean, muscular guy, but it's still, the pounding it's got to be tough on the knees and the hips and those kind of things.
The
have
calves.
You ever thought about a marathon?
I have. That's going to be the next thing I do. I'm starting to train for that now. I haven't found one yet that I'm going to run, but we've got some Spartan races coming up in October and November that I'm going to be running, and that'll help too. But I'd really, really like to run a marathon. I had signed up for the November Ironman triathlon in Panama City Beach, and due to a hip issue that I had to pull out of that, so I'm going to push it over to maybe Chattanooga. Now that's a whole different thing. You're right, I need to run a marathon before I run the triathlon.
Yeah, the triathlon was 112 miles biking, a marathon, full marathon, and 2.5 miles swimming. I mean, that's a different story there. But let me recommend a marathon, a beginning marathon. If you ever, it's in usually November or the last week of October. So, but the Marine Corps Marathon in Washington D.C., I've ran it 4 times.
Really?
And they usually, I don't know about now, but they usually have somewhere around 12,000 runners. But you run, it's almost all flat. There's a couple little hills, but nothing great. But you run by all the monuments, and it's so scenic. I mean, you'll run miles and not even realize you're running that much because you're looking at stuff,
Sure.
And I've ran with Coach Jim Mahalik at Park, and Larry Foster, who used to run Spartan Sporting Goods. He ran 1 year with me, and I ran 2 years by myself. But I'd recommend it if you ever think about that. And like I said, it's a good beginner marathon, and there's a lot of, you'll see the Marine Corps groups and the Army groups and all them guys come in. Plus, it's really scenic, so I mean, something to do. What you got on your? I mean, you're what, 48 years old?
I am.
And you were actually you were only like 17 when you graduated from high school, something like that, or
Almost, yes.
Yeah.
I just had turned 18.
they just hadn't turned 18, so you're relatively young. But what other than doing a marathon or a triathlete, becoming a triathlete, what's on your bucket list? What does Chris Grose want to? Anything that's soon, or anything that you've been thinking about, travel-wise or business-wise, or what's on your?
Business-wise, I'm trying to get into more property. I'm wanting to buy a location for my business to build a building that I kind of want.
Uh-huh.
To set up to where I can have a lot of the different things. We're hiring on a PT. So I also have an MD and a nurse practitioner in my practice. So I have what's called a multidisciplinary practice. So I kind of want to set it up that has the ability to do all of that in one setting.
Uh-huh.
To have a multidisciplinary place to where we can have workout facilities. The other thing that I really, really like to do and I want to do is try, my son and I wanted to get him to all the baseball facilities, major league in the country, and let him watch a game in each one of them. So I got 4 years to get him to all the baseball places. So that takes a little bit of time, especially when he's playing sports, and me running a business. But hopefully we can get that done.
Well, baseball is one of my favorite sports too, and I make it a point every year I go to at least one baseball game, professional game, and I haven't been this year went to Cleveland. That was the first time I'd been there. And of course, I've been to Washington Nationals, Cincinnati Reds, Pittsburgh, all those, but Baltimore. But I'd love to go to Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium, and just, but that's a great idea, great idea. And well, I tell you, Chris, time is flying. I've enjoyed talking to you. Only question, will you come back?
I would love to. I appreciate you having me today.
It's you were fun to watch, and I tell one more story. When we were playing Oak Hill, I think, and Coach Lambert called a play, and you took a time out and come over, and Lambert said, "What's going on?" He said, "You can't run that play out of that formation," which you couldn't. And Lambert looked over at me and he said, "We got another coach on the field." And you could. You called it right. But it's been fun. I enjoyed, like I said, enjoyed watching you play, and wish nothing but good luck to you and your son here on. And for those people out there that want to talk, contact us on Facebook, Wayne Bennett Podcast, or awbennett50@gmail.com. And remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. And until next time, God bless you.